Welcome to Picture Class. This is episode 6. I'm the doctor, Mr. Julian, and this is Quality Attempted's Picture Class. Please give us a subscribe, give us a like, give us a share, and that's about all the pitching I'm going to do until the end of the episode. Yay! We're going to cover the 1890s and 1920s in a quicker fashion than, watching all these things. Well, not watching. We're gonna have some fun. And let's go. 1, 2, 3. Woo! Did you see that? Oh, I did the wrong way. Let's try this again. 1, 2, 3. Woo! I did it on the second time. I'm good, right? So, cinema was born December 28th, 1895, because it was the first time moving images were projected for a paying audience. My French film teacher said he hates dates, he doesn't care about dates, but he made sure that we knew that date. Very important. French film often is coinciding with the beginning of film. They actually claim that the first film actually was in 1888. I saw this on Wikipedia. Don't know how accurate it is, but when I was doing some refresher. I'm not doing all this homework based on Wikipedia, I swear. So the Lumieres, Auguste and Louis Lumiere, believed in the cinema, and they were kind of the pioneers. One of their first films in 1895, I believe, was workers leaving the Lumiere factory. So it's basically a factory, one steady shot like this. It started very humbly, just people walking around, and then, hey, this looks pretty good. Why is this important? Because this is the foundation of what we watch today. Visual art. Started with visual and then they added sound later. So there was a whole 40 years almost of just silent films. So then we have one of our first people who was very important, Mr. George Méliès. If you haven't heard or ever seen the image of a moon with a black eye, A Trip to the Moon from 1902 is where you're going to have to go. And if you're just like, I don't know if I can watch silent movies, at least watch Hugo, directed by Martin Scorsese from 2011, which covers George Méliès' career in 3D nonetheless. But it talks about how he made hundreds of movies, and these were the days. He built sets before it was kind of a thing. He built all out. They hand-colored each single frame to make the moving pictures in color. So I think that's pretty cool. Alice Guy, our first women filmmaker, showed up in 1896 with The Fairy of the Cabbages. She also remade this film 2 more times, I believe, so if you look up the version, it might be the version from 1900. But Alice Guy made a lot of films, and she was very influential, very early pioneer. So Lumieres, George Méliès, and Alice Guy, 3 people you'd want to look up to know about the beginning of film. Those are the big names, so you search them, YouTube, see some of these films. They're not going to be exciting. You're not going to be like, this is a 10 out of 10 masterpiece. This beats the Avengers every single time. But it's nice to know where cinema started. And if you just want anything from this specific episode, at least you know these fun little facts. So 1890s, 1900s. Another reason I decided to go a little more broad for this episode is some silent movies could be 3 to 4 to 5 hours. I'm not going to make you watch Abel Gance's Napoleon, which is one of the only movies ever shot in, no, not one of the only movie shot in Polyvision. It means it was 3 full-screen images all at the same time at the end, because I think it was a movie like this, so it was like full screen, and then the other 2 curtains rose, and then it was 1 red, 1 white, and blue, or I'm not exactly sure the French flag at the second, I'm sorry. I'm a little wired right now. I'm really excited about this class, So we get on to the 1910s and 1920s. So for this, I'm going to focus on the big 3 in terms of the comedians, or I would say the visual gag actors. This would be Mr. Charles Chaplin, Buster Keaton, and Harold Lloyd. Of course, everyone knows Charlie Chaplin because, he had the little tramp mustache and he can't do that nearly as well. But if you'd like to check out a film, The Rink from the 1910s, his tramp character developed, and then eventually he became one of the biggest of all, probably is the biggest of those 3 stars, and one of the most recognizable. I believe he once lost in the Charlie Chaplin lookalike contest. I think he came in second, so he actually dressed up and went to the contest and didn't even win. He did a lot of masterpieces. My favorite would be City Lights from 1931, but we're not covering the 30s this week. So it's kind of hard. He did probably the most earlier on. Buster Keaton teamed up with Fatty Arbuckle, who eventually would become involved in the first big scandal of Hollywood. It was a big sex scandal. Was it Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle? Something like that. And Buster Keaton eventually split with him, and then he became the Great Stone Face. Of the three, Buster Keaton's probably the most technically interesting because his gags were incredible. He had the one, I think, where the house comes and falls right. He's standing there and the window goes right through him. That is just incredible. I also found out that Jackie Chan was a huge Buster Keaton fan and basically idolized the guy. If you know who Buster Keaton is or seen any of his films, you would agree he has just the technical prowess. It's just amazing. And he has signature pork pie hat. Another fun fact, if you are a Marvel fan, you probably know that Ant-Man was originally supposed to be directed by Edgar Wright. Edgar Wright was working on the film since 2005, and before the movie came out, he did cast Paul Rudd as well as write the script, which he is still credited for in combination with other people. However, he could not concede to the changes that Disney wanted to make, so he left. And on the day he left, he posted on his social media a picture of Buster Keaton sitting, I believe, on the movie The Navigator with a Cornetto ice cream. Buster Keaton famously signed a contract with, I think, Warner Brothers, and gave him full control because the studios were taking a little bit more control, and they started casting him in movies which weren't for him, and his career very quickly erased, and he kind of just disappeared almost. But he was in a Charlie Chaplin movie, which was pretty perfect, where they do a really wonderful scene together when Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton are much older. It is really funny. I would say it's the equivalent of Donald Duck and Daffy Duck in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but just with the two biggest silent movie stars. Now we have Harold Lloyd here at the bottom. He's the interesting guy from Safety Last. If you've ever seen the guy hanging on the clock, that's the big image. But if you were to pick a movie from the 1920s, I would suggest The Freshman. That was my favorite. When he goes to college, he's just very goofy in that movie, and he's just like, does this dance, and it's just, I don't know, every single time I just can't get it out of my mind. Another fun fact about Harold Lloyd, he may be the first person ever to flip someone off in a film, because in the movie Speedy, he walks past the mirror at a carnival and he just flips himself off. Why does he flip himself off? I don't know. Maybe he's just like, you know what, fuck that guy. So I thought that was kind of cool. So this is just a quick summary of the silent era. Of course, this is nowhere near as much, because this is 40 years. But in those 40 years, they pretty much perfected the filmmaking. They would just take cameras and they put it on everything. Cars. That's why if you watch some of the older silent films, you'll see, wow, they did some really crazy shit. Hell's Angels, which was directed by Howard Hughes. No, was it Howard Hughes or was it Howard Hawks? I think it was Howard Hughes himself. Howard Hughes became the famous recluse billionaire who Iron Man is based off of. Howard Hughes, very famous guy, and he attached all these cameras to airplanes and did an actual dogfight scene. So if you've seen the movie Hell's Angels, which took so long, it was silent, it had part film and color, and it had sound. So it had all three of those things. He was working on the film so much, he was a perfectionist, and a lot of great aviation shots, probably the best ever in film history. Yeah, it happened in the 30s. Also, safety wasn't really as much of a concern at this point. Another fun fact, Ben-Hur had over, I think, 110 cameras for their chariot race scene. Most people talk about the 1955 one, but don't count out the silent films yet. Now, when silent films started coming to an end, mostly because sound was always there in different gimmicks. It was kind of like 3D. They had sword effects, but it never really caught on. When sound came around, it was originally on vinyl. It was a vinyl, and they played it at the same time for the movie The Jazz Singer. One of the things, if you've seen the movie Singing in the Rain, musical from the 1950s, they show some of the issues with it, where if the record skipped, the whole movie would be out of sync. So this proved to be a problem at some point, and then they eventually did sound on film, where it shows the film strip, and then there's actually the audio is on the strip, and then I'm not exactly sure of the technical process. I'm sure if you're out there, someone can explain it much better than I can. But there were color films. They just had to hand paint them. They had 2-strip Technicolor process, and then Disney came out with a 3-strip Technicolor process. They tried sound before. My French film teacher said it's not like they didn't try everything. They literally tried everything in the silent era. And then when they started with sound, they had to relegate backwards. If you watch any movies from the early 1930s, you'll wonder why everything looks so artificial. Well, they started subjecting themselves to studios where they needed to control the sound. So a lot of silent movies might have a more organic feel than the subsequent movies for probably about 20 years. And then the French New Wave kind of changed that, and this is why film history is interesting. You kind of see, oh, well, this is why it was like that. You're talking a lot, Julian. I know. It's a very interesting period that I can summarize very quickly because it was very interesting to learn about, but at the same time, when it comes to breaking everything down, it might bore most of you to sleep. All 30 viewers I have. Maybe I'm pushing it. Maybe 15. 5? Anyone, please? Anyway, so it's almost that they unlearned everything and then you slowly see them learning it again. That's why they talk about Citizen Kane being so important. The movie kind of pushed them into a direction, even though a lot of techniques you wouldn't see for another 10 years. And everything was done in the silent era. Everything. So if everyone thinks it's a ripoff, oh, he copied this, everything was copied from the silent era. Just imagine 40 years mastering an art, and then they kind of had to completely change it. So also the movie The Artist. I'm talking really fast, but you know, that's how things work here at Quality Attempted. We throw a lot of facts. Maybe some of them are actually true. But anyway, what I was talking about before with innovation, with the camera, workers leaving the Lumiere factory. Think about this. If you're on Snapchat or you're on Instagram or you're on TikTok or you're on Twitter and you have all these stories and all this visual images, a lot of times you see these things, right? You know, people doing this. This is the famous shot now. This is almost a 21st century shot. I mean, to someone who's interested in it, it's terrible because it's just like, hey, I'm on camera. This is what I need. Even this what you're seeing right now, I have framed it kind of with some fun stuff in there if you look hard enough for it, but at the same time it's a static shot. You know, it's not exactly moving, not cuts, nothing really too intriguing, but we have gotten accustomed to that for YouTube videos and social media. So what I would challenge to you or to anyone interested is try to be a little more artistic with your I mean, I could try the same thing, but I just do visual gags. I'm not that funny. I'm not the creative, sorry. I am hilarious, right? He's not laughing. So what you try to do is try different types of storytelling with the different things. So you have 15 seconds sometimes in Snapchat, or you have, you know, about a minute in Instagram. And sometimes what I like to do is I'll do a static image, maybe a series of letters, or it's like 1, 2, 3. Think of it almost as a comic strip, and each thing is its own frame. It's its own little canvas that you could paint it upon. Just like film was for the Lumieres, and they just had all these ideas exploding. But so many things now are just filters and people trying to do it. A lot of people just pretending to take their clothes off, or that line thing they jump in and out, or filters to make them look younger, which is very cool. It is nice that they have these technologies, but don't forget, you hold the camera in your hand. You hold the paintbrush that could paint a masterpiece. Will everyone care about it? Probably not, but at least you'll have fun. And if you can make movies on your phone, which was the dream of almost anyone who has ever made a film ever, then I think there's a lot of hope for a lot of great stories out there, because that means anyone could do it with a little budget. And this is kind of the thing that filmmakers want, is they want to see ideas, they want to see short films, and then they get better, then people make more, and they make more big budget, and they change the world. This is why film, the cinema, is intended for paying audience. That's always artistic and the creative artisticness and the business side of it. That's why we're always going to see a lot of sequels and stuff, because it still is a business, but they need that guaranteed money. Doesn't mean there's going to be less small films, but in the movie theaters there might be. So if you ever are interested in a movie that's not a big franchise or an IP, and you think you want to see it, might not be a bad idea to actually pay the few dollars, $10, $15, and go see it and support the local artists. As well as anyone who has a phone that ever had a dream to do a little movie, you too can be an artist. Well, not nearly as terrible as me, because remember that quality is attempted here. But I just wanted to try something a little bit different, a little different thing for this. It might have been a complete failure. Trust me, we're going to go back to normal next week. We're going to go right into the future with the 2000s. So that decade, 2000, that decade will be our next thing. I just wanted to cover this. I think it was okay. You let me know what you think in the comments. Have you ever seen any silent movies? Is there any silent movies you want to see? Always, you can hit us up on qualityattempted@gmail.com if you have any suggestions. Like our you don't like Instagram, that's Facebook. Follow our Instagram. Come on, we need some followers. Do I have to dance? Do I have to promise something? At 50 subscribers, I'll do something even stupider than I usually do. I'll try to do a handstand, I'll do cartwheels. What do you want? Come on.